I'll be honest, fellas, it was sounding great, but I could have used a little more cowbell.
It's time to jump into DraftKings. Go to DraftKings today at DraftKings.com. Golf, NASCAR, soccer, you name it. And of course, Major League Baseball, basketball, hockey, and football. Go to DraftKings.com. Listen to the Armchair Quarterbacks for DFS advice all year round.
Oh, wow. I'm pretty sure that's going to be there it is. Another flag on the play.
Multiple flags on the play. Holding. Offense number 97. That penalty was declined. Touchdown. After the play, unsportsmanlike conduct. Offense number 22. Penalty will be applied to the kickoff.
This is going to be one of the strangest calls.
That son of a... You playing against Dick this week? Yeah. Could be worse, man. When I played against him, he ejected all my players.
What?
Armchair.
Lager, the beer that brought the forest down.
I drive an exotic imported sports car. I eat exotic foreign food like frankfurters and pizza. But when it comes to numbing my mind, I'm a patriot. I drink the beer that brought the forest down. I'm a lager man. And with the new 80-bottle trunk pack, you've got enough for the evening. Hey, it's happy hour somewhere.
Lager brings out the patriot in you.
The Armchair Quarterbacks, ESPN Radio's public enemy number one. Weekdays, your first choice for sports talk here in the Southeast.
What happens when 5 eligible bachelors welcome a little girl into their lives?
Hey, it's my turn in the bathroom.
Non-stop hilarity. My 5 uncles.
Hey, Gina, welcome to your new home. You sleep in there, and we all sleep in here.
The show that shows family values exist even in unconventional families.
Oh, what are you guys doing in there?
Taking hilarious comedy in a whole new funny direction.
I don't get it. Why don't any of you guys have a steady girlfriend? I'm an emotionally abused orphan. Can I get in on any of these group hugs?
My 5 uncles. Thursday nights on LSBC.
I only had a brain.
You're riding Morning Shotgun, your first choice for sports talk here on the First Coast, only on
Armchair.
We live in a world now that welcomes and nurtures the screwball in all of us. Hey, it's a new decade, people. Time to get a little nutty. Treat yourself to Screwball Peanut Butter Whiskey, a smooth flavor that combines 2 of America's favorites, peanut butter and American whiskey. So no more social awkwardness. Time to embrace who you truly are. Get out there and make friends. And be sure it starts with Screwball Peanut Butter Whiskey.
Good morning. Welcome to Gators and Golf for Tony Agolini, as he is joining us now. And, I think this is the day that Tony waits for, where we pretty much just talk his Florida Gators and how they're going to do this year in what is going to be a very unpredictable SEC season if you're not playing in the SEC West. How are you, Tony?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm excited. We got Gator Day here. At the bottom of the hour, it's Tennessee Titans Day. And then we get Matt Carr's terrible NFL picks for this season. Or no, I'm sorry, college football picks for the season. So there's a lot to and my Atlanta Braves keep gaining ground, even though we've been off the past 2 days. So all things are good in the hood, as they say.
Yeah, it's we were talking about this like what, it was 3 weeks or so, a month ago, about this is kind of what Braves fans are waiting for, this 3-week stretch, and it's kind of working out how everybody said it would.
It's really nice when the Braves gain ground on Philadelphia when they're off and Philly's hosting Arizona. They've now lost 4 consecutive games to the Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was actually watching Rays Phillies a couple nights ago, just to watch the Rays, but also to to help the Braves, and hung my head a little bit when the Phillies hit a home run to tie it, but luckily the Rays had a 3-run homer of their own. So, but yeah, this has been fun. It's kind of like the 3-week stretch where I watch a little bit more pro baseball right before football starts.
And Tampa's playing so incredible right now, and they're not gaining any ground because the Yankees forgot how to lose. They've now won was it now 12 in a row? It's just insane. They blew a 6-0 lead last night and still came back and won the game. Unbelievable.
Crazy.
All right, well, let's dive into the Florida Gators. That's what everyone's here for. It's college football. College football technically kicks off tomorrow. And we won't be here next week. I'm going to be out of town, and the logistics of trying to do a show, I have no idea what kind of Wi-Fi I'm going to walk into. So I just kind of punted and said, you know what, wife, I'm going to give you your 4 or 5 days of no sports talk. Even though everyone who's going to come hang out with us, that's all we're going to be doing, staying out in the damn kitchen and talking ball games. But so no Gators and golf next week. And no Dixie Football Nation like we normally kick off with, because once again, I'm out of town. We are going to be starting that on September 11th, the 20th anniversary of 9/11, by the way. So we do look forward to that. I might put a drop in there for next Saturday morning, but nothing live. Okay. Let's get into it, man. The Florida Gators. I think the big thing because it's become a quarterback sport, everyone's worried about is how do they replace Kyle Trask? Is Jones the guy? What say you?
I hope he is. I think the biggest thing in replacing Kyle Trask is if they're ever going to get the run game going, this is the year. The offensive line really wasn't built last year for pass protection, but they were able to make it work with some different combinations. If it was up to Mullen, he'd control the clock and really use the quarterback as a running weapon. He wasn't really able to do that this year or last year, and that's kind of the wild card this year with Emory Jones. I think as long as Mullen puts him in safe situations and Emory Jones can complete the gimme passes, the swing passes, the screens, get these guys underneath in space, like that kind of stuff, I think the other stuff will come. So as long as he's not a guy that's, gonna panic or start watching his offensive line as he drops back to pass, stuff like that, it's really that trust between the quarterback and the offensive line. I think that's going to be the key on offense, because I think the other pieces are there. I think the running back room is pretty deep, and it's pretty, I wouldn't say loaded, but it's talented. There's a couple guys that haven't proved it yet at the college level. Bowman was a big time recruit we really wanted. Went to Clemson, just transferred to Florida. He's eligible to play this year. He's a smaller guy, he's a home run threat. Lingard was a 5-star guy that started at Miami, transferred to Florida. He really didn't have an impact last year on the team. He had a few carries, but those are kind of the supplemental key cog pieces. But the big ones, Pierce has been there forever. I feel like Pierce has ran for us for like 10 years. You still have Naquan Wright. You still have Malik Davis, who was going well a couple years ago and had a big knee injury. So there's 5 guys there that can play. And I think the receivers, there's not a lot of returning talent, but there's returning starting guys getting a lot of receptions type talent. But there's guys that have been in the wings for a few years like Copeland and Shorter that can certainly help Jones. So basically everybody has to step up. And behind Jones, you have Anthony Richardson, which in the last week or two, people have really started to rave about, it seems like. He's a Gainesville kid. He went to Eastside High School. He's a kid that everybody knew about like in 8th grade just because he was in Gainesville already. He'll be the backup. I don't see him really replacing Jones, and Mullen's a pretty patient guy with his quarterbacks. I don't see him really replacing Jones unless something, Jones starts off and throws 2 picks against USF or something like that. But hopefully Jones is the guy. That's kind of what we're all betting on. But I think the biggest thing is the offensive line has to be able to protect and run block. And if Florida can run the ball for, 220 or so a game, I think Jones will be just fine because he's not going to be forced to throw for 380 every game like Trask did last year.
Do you expect Pierce to get the lion's share, or do you think it's going to be more of a split backfield?
I think they're going to have a couple running backs on the field, I think, at all times. There isn't really – so the position I didn't mention was tight end. And that's a big missing piece from last year. Last year you had Kyle Pitts, and that was kind of – when he was healthy, that was the safety valve for Trask. So Jones doesn't really –
I feel like I've heard of that guy before. The last 2 months of fantasy football drafts, Kyle Pitts comes up a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure. And, the guy that's behind him, Zipperer – I know Coach Brewster talked him up. He's not going to be the same. He's still a good player, but I think not having a proven tight end is actually going to be why you'll see more running backs on the field for Florida. I think last year there's a lot of one back or no back sets. This year I think you'll see a couple backs on the field. You might see one drift off in motion, but yeah, Pierce I think is kind of the bull horse here. I do think he'll probably get the majority of the carries. He's pretty protective of the football. That's the biggest thing, and he's really good at picking up blitzes, and that's two ways to stay on the field. Bowman, Lingard, and Wright, and all these other Malik Davis, they're all talented, but if you can't pick up a blitz or help your team in other ways by just other than toting the rock, you're a liability. So I do think you'll see a lot of Pierce this year. He's earned it. I mean, he's been there forever. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, they got to be able to run the ball.
The defensive side of the ball, I mean, it can't get worse, right? So what is realistic as far as Gator fans going into this year? Are they looking at, they think that Grantham's going to turn this whole thing back around and it's going to be a more of a like a Muschamp type defense? Or is it really more of the fact that they're just hoping that this defense can make baby steps this year? What do you think is the real, because how does he keep his job?
I don't know. I think for me, I really just want to see them get in somebody's way every now and then. I think that was the biggest thing last year. There was a few games where the defense played well. I mean, the LSU game, the defense actually played all right that game until the moron threw a shoe and we gave up some third downs. And there were some games the defense played well against Georgia for the most part until towards the end where they had open guys and their quarterback couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. But there's some guys that moved on that maybe saw the field too much last year, that were liabilities, and they've been moved on somehow. You got drafted even, but I think the biggest thing for the defense last year, the defensive line was just okay. Everybody was just okay last year, and then the secondary was lousy. And if your line is just okay, you're not getting pressure on the quarterback. It makes it a lot harder for the secondary, and you're much more likely to get exposed. And I think that's the biggest thing that happened last year. Defensively, guys that came in, Shelton and Newkirk or Valentino. Those are the two key defensive tackles that came in, one from Penn State, one from Auburn. They've been through strength programs up there and all that. So it's not like they're coming to Florida from a smaller school and, had to adjust to big time college football. So I think they'll both be good. Zach Carter and Brandon Cox will play end mostly. Cox, they'll move around, kind of a hybrid linebacker, defensive end kind of. But the thing for him is, can he stay healthy? He had a foot injury a couple months ago. Is that okay? He hasn't really been the most dependable as far as staying on the field goes from an injury standpoint. I like where the linebackers are. I like Diabate. Dontrell Miller is an excellent player, one of the best linebackers in the SEC. Trevez Johnson plays like that star position everybody's come up with, where you're kind of a hybrid safety / linebacker, depending on down and distance. But the biggest question for me on the defense is secondary. I'm not a huge fan of the guys in the secondary, at least as far as the safeties go. Elam's a great player. He's all SEC. He's got a lot of potential as a pro. He's going to be really good. We lost Jaden Hill, like we discussed a few weeks ago. So somebody who was a nickelback has to slide into that number 2 cornerback, and then somebody else has to slide into nickelback. So it's this big chain reaction. So, how do they adjust to that? And I think that's the biggest thing. But to answer your question, honestly, just for me as a fan, just get off the field on 3rd and 8 and over. We give up way too many of those. If you're giving up a 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, that's one thing. But these 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 9s, they're basically turnovers. They're killers. And we've got guys I don't need to see this year. I don't need to see cornerbacks giving 8-yard cushions, and I don't need to see safeties blitzing from 40 yards away and not getting near the quarterback and leaving your defensive backs on an island.
That's one of the things that jumped out at me when I watched, when I read up about on the Gators, was the fact that their 28 touchdown passes allowed through the air was 4 more than anyone in the Southeastern Conference. Mm-hmm. That's concerning.
Yeah.
And look, I do think that the Gators will get their offense. Is it going to be Kyle Trask? Like, no, that offense was ridiculous. That's what you lose when you lose a 17-year senior is y'all basically had Chris Winkie out there playing quarterback for you. But I think Emory Jones is going to put up some points. The question is going to be, especially early on in the season in big moments, for the defense to play well enough to where he doesn't feel like he's got to score every single time he hits the field. And that's when these young quarterbacks get in trouble, is that they feel the pressure of, well, we're down 10 and I've got the ball. I better put it in the end zone, because if I don't, we're going to be down 17 the next time I touch the ball.
Yeah. And Mullen, I wasn't a big fan of it when he did it, and maybe it'll pay off this year, but like there's been games, even a couple years ago when we played at LSU and we were in that track meet going up and down in Baton Rouge, and I think we had a touchdown lead. They came back, and all of a sudden we put Emory Jones on the field inside our own 20, really for no reason, because the offense was humming, and then he comes in, goes 3 and out, and then LSU takes the lead, and that totally changed the game. I would have rather won that game 2 years ago, but I don't know, maybe it'll help this year. I don't know, but I'm with you. Like, the red flag is going to be the defense can't stop anybody. Jones feels like he's got to start carrying the team on his back, because he's not built like that, at least from what I've seen so far. And then the other part of that is if he starts watching his offensive line because he's scared to death they can't protect him. Those are going to be the 2 red flags for me for him.
Absolutely. And then also what I'm seeing here too is when you've got Zach Carter and you've got Elam, you do have 2 guys on the first team defense, on the SEC first team defense. So you've got a guy who should be putting pressure on the quarterback. And then Elam should be a guy that's back there who's giving you some confidence. Do you almost just put him on an island and then let the rest try to shut down the other receivers, or is that Grantham style?
Yeah, it's funny because I think the part that hurts Grantham the most is kind of the randomness of his defense. Like, I think he thinks he's confusing the opponent, but he does more to confuse our guys than anything else. Like, you watch our guys pre-snap, and you can see it on TV, or you can see it when it's there. When you're there, there's a lot of like, what do we, hands in the air, guys looking at each other, wondering what they're supposed to be doing, and then the ball snapped and nobody's ready. So we played in more zone towards the end of last year, I think, just because we were getting beat so much in man. I don't know what he wants to do this year. You can kind of put Elam on an island. Elam's as good as anybody, and then maybe kind of protect that other side until we figure out who the other cornerback is. Marshall is really good, but he's a true freshman and hasn't seen these SEC receivers. So, and the biggest thing is, depending on what defense you're going to play, the safety responsibilities, and can you trust Trey Dean? And the other Dean's the older guy out there, but the younger guys, they've got to carry their responsibilities too. So, but yeah, Elam and Carter are all world. The biggest thing that I think that'll help Carter is the 2 defensive tackles that are coming in, because if you don't have tackles that can eat up space, it's tough for defensive ends to really make an impact. Like our best defensive ends, think of like Alex Brown back in the late 90s. Well, Alex Brown was really good because he had a first-round pick and Gerard Warren next to him, and another defensive tackle that was, they were both really good. They couldn't just double guys. So those defensive tackles will hopefully really help Zach Carter on one side and Cox on the other. I
didn't know when I grabbed this guy this morning that he has to be propped up somehow, because I was standing like that. He's just
what you're doing.
Well, I know I've had him on the set before. I guess I had him leaning on something.
We've got a ventriloquism segment coming up next, and I was wondering what was coming. So
this is Tim Tebow's going to answer questions now.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think your boy's back on SEC now, so you have that to look forward to next weekend.
There we go.
I wasn't sure. That was awesome.
The whole thing's gonna fall.
I'm talking and trying not to laugh while I was doing my thing, trying to figure out what you were.
Well, man, my hands started to cramp up because I'm sitting there holding. You gotta hold it kind of weird. I was like, this is not gonna make it through the rest of the show. I gotta find a way to set this up.
That's funny.
But
those hand cramps will get you.
I'm going, especially in your teens. Look, I am glad to hear that the Tebow finally came back to the SEC network and gave up on, whatever he's going to do next, bobsledding or whatever the hell he's going to try. But by the way, I saw this the other day, and I really wish I would have screen grabbed it and saved it, but I was busy at work and kind of forgot about it. Now I don't remember which day I saw this, but they were sitting there talking on PTI about Tebow getting cut by the Jaguars. And there's a part where Wilbon is saying that he thinks he should really go into broadcasting and think about trying broadcasting. And you should have seen the look on Kornheiser's face as he had to remind him, oh, by the way, he's been a broadcaster, not a broadcaster with ESPN for like the last 5 years or however long it's been. And then he just nodded along, goes, yeah, well, but that's what I'm talking about. Like, no. You forgot Tebow was on the SEC wake up show. Well, I forget what they call that, but I found it pretty funny. Where do the Gators finish in the SEC East?
I've got us in second behind Georgia. It's not necessarily because of the Florida Georgia game. Obviously, that's part of it, but I think too, Georgia's schedule is a little easier. A, they don't have Bama on it, but B, they don't go to LSU or play LSU. So,
well, they got Auburn, and then I don't know.
Who do they have? Let me see. They've got Auburn and
I want to say it's
Arkansas from the West.
There you go.
And
that's a big advantage right there. That's a huge.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Arkansas is not going to be they'll be sixth in the West or so this year, but that's the biggest reason. I've seen some with like Kentucky and Missouri ahead of Florida. I don't necessarily see that, although I'm not exactly looking forward to the game at Missouri, November 20th. But I have us, finishing in second. I have us going 9-3, which is kind of, I think, where we're going to be for a while. I think you're a break or two away from going 10-2, and you're a catastrophe away from going 8-4. So, but I think 9-3 is probably about right. The games that'll kind of define the season will be obviously LSU, Georgia, and Missouri, and then the Bama game can define the season if you win it, as long as you don't blow it against Tennessee the next week. But it's not a season killer. It's more of a, like, winning the Bama game would be huge for the morale of the program. You don't want Bama to come to the Swamp for the first time in forever and beat us like 35-14 or something like that.
Right.
But if you can somehow sneak a win out of there, it's huge for us. If you lose that, it's not a killer. You just, you got to be careful the rest of the year. But ultimately, I think out of Bama, LSU, Georgia, Missouri, I think maybe you go 2-2 at best. And then the Kentucky game is kind of a wild card. People are up on them this year. I know they brought in, the transfer quarterback from Penn State, and they could maybe he can actually throw the ball a little bit, but I don't see it. There's still just such a talent gap. I know we've struggled in Lexington the last few times, but
their offense is usually so atrocious. I got to see it too.
Yeah. That's the thing. And that'll be, I think that's the first game in October. So that'll be, 3 or 4 games into it. So we'll have a better feel for Kentucky by then.
I think Florida should win 2 of their rivalry games in Tennessee and Florida State. They're both in the Swamp. The Georgia game obviously is a big crapshoot. Georgia, I think, is the much better team. That's a rivalry game, and I'm not going to stand here 2 months away and say, oh, they're definitely going to win that game, because there's just no way of knowing that. Look, I've got Florida in a 12-game season, not counting the bowl game. I want to pull up their over/under. What do you have it as their win total?
I've got 9-3, so 9 wins. Bowl games now are so weird, because if you're not playing for anything, then
they're basically meaningless. Yeah, they're absolutely meaningless. Florida's over/under. Well, you hit the nail on the head. It's exactly at 9, and if you go over, it's very favorable in the payout. So, but you have to hit 10. If you go under, that's where the house is leaning. I don't look, if it's 8.5, I'm definitely banging 9. I don't think Florida loses more than 3 games this year. I'd be shocked if Florida loses more than 3 games. Grantham doesn't make it to the Florida State game.
If they lose, if they're if there's 4 losses before the FSU game, I don't think it's because the offense stinks. I think it's because we're having another year where the defense can't stop anybody.
Right, and it'll be a situation where the offense just can't play elite. College football playoffs, who are the 4 teams you're going to put in there? Because if you don't have Florida winning the East, do you have Bama winning the SEC? I'm assuming.
Yeah, so my East is Georgia, Florida, Missouri, and again, wait for that Missouri-Florida game on the 20th. That'll be November 20th. That'll be exciting, probably in the snow with our luck. Kentucky, Tennessee, South Carolina. Vandy's going to be terrible, obviously. In the West, I have Bama, Texas A&M, LSU, Ole Miss, Auburn isn't going to be good. Arkansas is still building. They'll be forever building. And I think the most overrated coach in the history of the SEC, Leach coming to the SEC, I think I don't think we did. I don't think, but people thought maybe he'd make this big impact at Mississippi State. I think he's way in over his head. I think he probably should have stayed out west. But so that's my East and West. For the playoffs, shockingly, I've got Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Oklahoma. So, go figure on that. But I did pick 4 teams, just kind of make it interesting, like 4 teams to kind of keep your eye on. Obviously, I had Georgia because Georgia's only going to have to play Alabama once, and it's a 1-game scenario in Atlanta. So, if they pop up and beat Alabama, then they're obviously going to get in.
Right.
UNC from the ACC is a team to watch. Howell's back again. They're, Mac Brown. I don't know what impact he's having as a head coach on game day because he did hire some good assistants, but his recruiting's been lights out for the last 2-3 years, and they're pretty loaded, and they've got some NFL guys. So watch for them. If A&M jumps up and surprises Alabama in that game and they stay clean, they're loaded talent-wise too. They named their starting quarterback earlier this week. That's just the big question is how good is he? Because their defense, I think, is finally going to be up to SEC standard. And then Oregon.
Oregon's going to be really good.
Yeah, transfer quarterback from Boston College that was pretty good there. Cristobal recruits well there too, and they Pac-10 kind of took their lumps last year, but I think Oregon's a team to watch out there as well.
I agree. We're coming up on the end of it. Well, first of all, who wins the national championship?
I think this might actually be Oklahoma's year.
As much as I don't like Oklahoma, I'd rather see them win it than I'm getting so sick of these same 4 teams. Right?
Me too. I would be ecstatic if out of the 4 teams I picked, if I could pick one to win it that I'd want to win it, it would be
right.
It would be
Spencer Rattler. Yeah, exactly. At least it'd be fun to watch.
Yeah, I love their coach. I think Rattler's a Heisman guy. If I had to pick a Heisman winner today, it's probably him because he's going to throw up ridiculous numbers out there. But I think I know they catch a lot of flack because they get to the playoffs and get the crap kicked out of them. But I think that's my pick to win the national title this year.
All right. Well, we don't have time for golf today because we are over time, so we got to run. Have a great weekend. We'll see you. What was that? It'll be September 10th, and then we'll see you hopefully on the Dixie Football Nation every Saturday.
You got it, man. Take care. I enjoyed it.
All right, brother.
See you.